Oops, I got cut off in the last video. I got way over things and I hit my 15 minutes. Okay, so again, looking at advantages and disadvantages of your dams. These are the large-scale hydropower, your dams. A lot of times sediment accumulates behind the dam, which can be an environmental problem. It can cause methane and decomposition to occur. It can also increase the water temperature of that water behind the dam, so that can be an issue for the organisms that live there. Organisms like salmon, who usually migrate up a river to spawn, they often can't get around a dam. Yes, dams usually have, here in the United States, have fish ladders for a route for the fish to get around, but that only works if the fish finds the fish ladder and figures out how to get around it, and that doesn't always happen. Only a large percentage actually, or small percentage actually learns how to go around the dam, and then of course they spawn and die, so that's the end of that. So they learn it once and that's okay, but you know, a lot of them don't get it. Disadvantages, it helps, of course. Advantages, it helps store a lot of water and stuff, and they are very energy efficient. Disadvantages, though, it's a flooding of a lot of terrain. It can be very costly to build. It destroys or really changes the habitat downstream, because now the water's not flowing. Now it's kept up behind the dam, so you have a decreased flow downstream that can greatly affect organisms both on the land and, of course, in what was the river and that kind of thing. Lots of issues. Just make sure you're comfortable with them, kind of thing. All should be good. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, geothermal. Geothermal is really, really, really cool. But with all these renewables, it can only occur in certain locations. And for geothermal, you need a location that has a lot of earth heat, center earth heat, mantle heat, very close to the surface. In Switch, they show you in Iceland. Iceland is actually the only part of the mid-oceanic ridge that extends above the water. So it's the edge of the tectonic plate. They're hugely volcanic, lots of heat underground, very close to the surface. So it works perfect there. It's not going to work everywhere, but if it does, if you can find a place for it to work, it's very neat. Basically what happens is you pump water into the rock. It becomes superheated by the Earth's heat, comes back and is used to create steam. Steam turns the turbine turns the generator, and wow, you have electricity. And again, it's non-depletable. I mean, seriously, the center of the Earth's always going to be hot. You're good to go, kind of thing. So it makes this great source of electricity. Another geothermal heat pump that we can do actually in houses, but not many people do it, but it's things, is to actually put a series of tubing, if you will, or netting kind of thing for water to run through, piping, in the ground. A few feet under the ground is the same temperature year-round. So it's like 60 degrees year-round. It doesn't matter where you are, that kind of thing. It just is that temperature year-round. So what can happen is if you put your house on a heat pump, this basically pumps water through the house, and in the winter, the water would get warmer to 6 degrees. In the summer, it would get cooler to 6 degrees. And then that would come back in, be radiated through your house, and would help cool your house. You probably won't heat your house enough you want, or cool your house to the point you want, but then you'd only have to use your heater, air conditioning to do that little bit of change, a tiny bit of difference, rather than doing the whole thing. So rather than heating your house from 30 to 70 degrees, now the heat pump would heat your house from 30 to 60, and then you'd only use your heater to go from 60 to 70. So it would reduce your energy a lot. Although I don't know of any houses, and here in Florida we wouldn't have this, we just can't because of our water table and stuff like that, but this is a possibility in some areas. Okay, and again, talking about another type of heat pump, again, on an individual basis you can do this. This is just to help kind of moderate the temperature in your house, pumping water into the ground, and then it comes back up. Either in the winter it would be heated compared to the water coming out, and then the summer it would be cooled. Okay. Different types of geothermal. You can do dry steam, which is water vapor and no actual water droplets. You can do wet steam, which is steam with water droplets, or just hot water. So there's 3 different systems there that can be used in buildings. Okay, so in the large scale electric producing things, we inject water into the ground, gets superheated, comes back up through a well, the production well. That gets used to make steam. Steam turns the turbine. Turbine turns the generator. Voila, electricity. Advantages and disadvantages of geothermal. It's highly efficient, very, very efficient. Moderate net energy, but in a way, who cares that it's not the most efficient thing because you have tons of it. Very low CO2 emissions, much lower than carbon or than fossil fuels. It's low cost at favorable sites. The problem is there's not a lot of favorable sites. It doesn't use a lot of land because everything's happening basically underground. So it's not very disturbing. Moderate environmental impact's not going to be a big deal. It's not a huge site. The problem is disadvantages. You can't do this everywhere. Scarcity of sites. There's only a few places really in the world that this is efficiently done and can be done. Depleted if used too rapidly. I don't know about that. I guess that probably depends on your location, but I can't imagine you could deplete it. There can be CO2 emissions, of course, during construction and that kind of thing, and depending on what else is going on. But for the most part, there shouldn't be. Air pollution with the steam and stuff like that, you can get some contaminants in that water coming back up, like sulfur. So there's a possibility of some pollution coming out of it, such as sulfur. Cost is high to make it, but once it's up and running, it should be pretty easy to sustain. Okay, wind turbines. Wind turbines. Gotta love your good wind turbine. In a wind turbine, where's my picture of a wind turbine? There it is. In a wind turbine, basically your blades are working as your turbine. Okay? There is a gearbox here, because if you have ever seen a wind turbine move, they move slow. It's like being on the highest gear on your bike. It's one turn of it, you're slow on it, but ultimately it turns your back wheel fast because of the gear change. So there's a gearbox there, so that one slow rotation of the turbines means multiple rotations of the gears that go into the generator. So this works as the turbine, and then there's a gearbox to make that one revolution of the turbine into hundreds of revolutions in the gearbox. That turns into the generator and makes electricity. When you have a lot of them, it's called a turbine field or a wind farm kind of thing. Again, problems with this, you have to have it in an area that has good sustained winds year-round kind of thing to some degree. It's basically inexhaustible as long as it's in a good place. It's very easy to do. You just come in and you can drop these suckers in pretty easily. There's no greenhouse gases. It's pretty clean. You can put them on already occurring land. A lot of farmers are dropping them into their fields because it's a cornfield. Okay, I can give up a few square feet kind of thing to drop in some turbines and actually add money to my revenue and stuff like that. So a lot of that's happening. So it's going in on pre-constructed fields. It's not going into disturbing lots of areas, but even if they go into areas that are more wild, they have a very small footprint. The bottom of them is very small, a few little roads, and you're done. You don't have to do a lot of land disturbance. Pretty much an untapped power. This is going to be a big deal, and it only captures about 20% of the wind energy, but yet if you have a lot of wind, 20% is a lot of energy. And again, you're never going to use this alone, and that's the thing with all the renewables. You can't use any one of them by themselves for the most part because they're not 100% reliable, except maybe geothermal and hydroelectric. They're not. If it stops blowing, the wind stops blowing and there's no wind, you've got to have something to back it up to still provide energy. So they need to be used in combination. Okay. So, yeah. A lot of areas have a lot more turbines than us because their governments subsidize them and support it. Our government has not been doing that, and don't see it happening in the future either. Okay, so again, like I said, the blades are the turbine. They go into a gearbox, so one rotation of the blades turns into 100 rotations of the shaft going into the generator to make electricity. There is some concern that wind turbines actually harm birds and bats and that kind of stuff. But I'm sorry, I've seen lots of wind fields, and those blades don't turn that fast. So if you're a bird running into them, you're kind of dumb. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, and compared to what? So we're hurting a few birds, even if that's, and that, yes, that's sad, but compared to what? Many of our other life forms, they destroy large amounts of, areas and stuff like that and do a lot more harm. So you have to risk this. And of course, I think it's hysterical because Ducks Unlimited is one of the big components against wind turbines, but they're duck hunting group. So, like, no, we don't want the wind turbines to hurt our ducks because we want to shoot them. Okay, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't get that one. Wind turbine or wind power, again, advantages, disadvantages. Pretty good net energy, high net energy, very efficient, moderate cost. They're pretty easy. They're very easy to put up, very easy construction, very low environmental impact, especially if we put them in areas like pastures and stuff, cattle pastures and that kind of thing. No CO2 emissions. Quick construction. They're usually built at a factory and they just come in and literally ascend them and pop them up in a day. It's pretty amazing. Easily expanded. You can put in 3 and you can expand it to 6 very easily and just hook them all together. The land they use, very little land, and it can again they can be dropped in already existing crop and grazing land, which is good. The disadvantages, they can only occur in places that have good steady winds year round kind of thing. You're going to need a backup system when the winds are low or non-existent. If you have a wind farm, yes, you're going to use a lot more area, but still sufficiently, it's not that bad. Visual pollution. You can hear them, you can see them. It's pretty background noise. They're not very intrusive. Yeah, I can understand you might not want to look at them, but I don't think they look half bad, and I'd rather look at that than a coal-burning power plant. So, I don't know. And again, they could interfere with the flights of migratory birds and stuff like that, but that really is probably rather minimal. And should be a concern, but not necessarily a major concern. Okay, let's see. I think I'm going to cut this one off, and I will use hydrogen fuel cells for the last one. So one more video. Sorry, guys. See you later.